Good morning, everyone. We are all extremely privileged to be hosting you today at the National Virtual Seminar on Affordable Shelters for Women and Children in Delhi, hosted by Campus Law Center, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. The seminar today is being organized by CLC as part of the wider research project on affordable shelter for street women and children, a case study of Delhi, under the aegis of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and in collaboration with the Center for Environmental Law Education, Research and Advocacy at the National Law School of India University, Bangalore. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our program director, Dr. Anita Yadav, who will be delivering today's welcome address. Dr. Anita Yadav is currently working as an assistant professor of law at senior scale at Campus Law Center, University of Delhi. Before joining Campus Law Center, Dr. Yadav has worked as an assistant professor of law at the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, Christ University, Bangalore, and Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College, Puducherry University. She has received various awards and scholarships over the course of her academic career. Just to name a few, recently, she received a scholarship to attend and present her paper in the International Law Association conference held at Lisbon in Portugal in 2022. In 2018, she received the United Nations Asia and Pacific Regional Course International Law Fellowship. She was an Erasmus Mundus visiting research scholar at the George August University of Göttingen, Germany from 2015 to 2016, and also a visiting fellow at the United Nations Human Rights Committee 116th session held at Geneva. She has been awarded the Hague Academy of International Law Scholarship, Netherlands, in the year 2016, and the Junior Research Fellowship in Human Rights and Duties from the University Grants Commission, UGC, New Delhi. Ma'am, I would like to call upon you to kindly deliver the welcome address for today's seminar.
Thank you, Madhav, for your kind introduction. So, a very good morning to one and all present here. I, Dr. Anita Yadav, on behalf of Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, and Center for Environmental Law Education, Research and Advocacy, CERA, at National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, Chair on Urban Poor and the Law Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India at NLSIU, and also on behalf of our knowledge partner, National Institute of Urban Affairs, Delhi, welcome you all in this one-day virtual national seminar on affordable shelter for women and children in Delhi. Friends, it's given me immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to our chief guest of today's seminar, Shri Bharat Parasharji, District Judge, Member Secretary, Delhi State Legal Service Authority, and sir will be joining our program soon within 10 minutes. I also extend my heartfelt welcome to our guest of honor, Shri Hitesh Vaidyaji, Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, Delhi. I welcome my special guest, Professor Dr. Sai Ram Bhatt sir, Professor of Law, Coordinator, Center for Environmental Law Education, Research and Advocacy at National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, who is the main motivation behind this program. And my beloved Professor Dr. Alka Chawla ma'am, Professor in charge at Campus Law Center, University of Delhi. And last but not least, my all dear participant of the program, I once again welcome you all. So friends, let me tell you a little bit about this seminar. As Madhav has already told you that we are conducting this seminar as a part of our larger research project, which Campus Law Center, University of Delhi has undertaken in collaboration with National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, under the aegis of Chair on Urban Poor Law, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. My friend, this research project contains two important components, which include the research component and activity component. And this very seminar forum, the pillar of this engagement, and is designed to create the awareness amongst all stakeholders about this important issue. It is our hope that this seminar will help in a constructive exchange of ideas, experiences, and perspective and generate a long-term and practical solution, thus productively informing the narrative and policy around homelessness and allied issues like crime, violence, malnutrition, sexual exploitation, etc. As a part of this initiative, the seminar has invited leading academicians, regulator, policymaker, research scholar, NGO, student, and so many other stakeholders from across a different discipline to submit their research paper. And I'm very glad to tell you, we have received very overwhelming response for this seminar. Total 110 abstract we have received. And out of the rigorous selection, we have only selected 58. And today, total 29 paper is going to be presented by various stakeholders. So with this, I will end my welcome address. Thank you, Madhav.
Thank you for your kind words of insight, ma'am. There is absolutely no question about the fact that today's seminar will help inform the current narrative around the problems of affordable shelters and allied problems such as malnutrition, exploitation, and violence. We do hope that today's seminar helps in generate ideas that are able to productively inform the policy narrative around these issues and hope to contribute to alleviating the lot of the suffering of the lot of the masses who are facing these problems. Ma'am, however, I would like to take the liberty to disturb you once again and kindly request you to introduce our audience to the next speaker for today's inaugural ceremony, Professor Dr. Alka Chawla, the Professor in charge for Campus Law Center, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Madhav. It's always a great privilege and honor to introduce my beloved professor in charge of Campus Law Center, Professor Dr. Alka Chawla, ma'am, and also the patron-in-chief of this seminar. So Professor Dr. Alka Chawla, ma'am, is currently a professor in charge at Campus Law Center, and ma'am is one of the leading authority in copyright and in IPR field. Ma'am has been listed in top 100 powerful women in the law, released by the World IP Forum in 2017 and also in 2021. Ma'am has also been nominated as a national expert on the intellectual property by the European Trade and Business Council and served as a mentor to the Intellectual Property Protection Organization. She is also a member of the Education Committee, FICCI. Ma'am is a recipient of prestigious Teacher of the Year Award, female in 2018, given by the Indian National Bar Association. Ma'am is very prolific writer and she has authored books on copyright law published by Macmillan and LexisNexis and written a number of articles and research papers in reputed journals. Ma'am has also delivered a lecture at various prestigious universities, and just to name few, the George Washington University, US, University of Edinburgh, UK, Swiss Institute of Comparative Law, Switzerland, etc. So with this, I welcome you, my beloved professor in charge of Campus Law Center, Professor Dr. Alka Chawla, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Anita. It's my, what should I say? It's my pleasure that when my teachers introduce me, they always say beloved. Normally, the vocabulary used is respected, but I just love that when they call me beloved, because I think respect is included there. And thank you, Anita. Thank you so much. And thank you, Madhav, for hosting this ceremony very well. Good morning to all. Mr. Bharat Parashar, Member Secretary, Delhi State Legal Services Authority. He's joined. He's the chief guest for the program today. Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, Director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, is the guest of honor. Our special guest is Professor Sairam Bhatt, Coordinator CIRA at NLS IU Bangalore, and Dr. Anita, who's the Project Director. I see a number of faculty members also, dear faculty members, paper presenters, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to heartily welcome all participants of the National Virtual Seminar on Affordable Shelters for Women and Children in Delhi, hosted by Campus Law Center, University of Delhi. We at the CLC, we are delighted to be able to host the seminar on such a pertinent issue, plaguing women and children in the capital city of Delhi. Our only regret being that we could not host you physically on our campus, but I'm sure we will do that very soon. I think the next seminar has to be physically done, Anita, with all the guests here. We would like to meet them personally. CLC, as we all know, since its inception in 1924, has been a leader in producing legal luminaries, Supreme Court and High Court judges. At the moment, if you see, I think there are around 7 Supreme Court judges who are from CLC, which is a great achievement that we have. All the leading advocates, political leaders, policy makers, and trendsetters in all walks of life. It is endowed with an elite alumni, whilst being an egalitarian institute, providing quality legal education at negligible cost. You know, if you come to CLC, you will find there's a small India. I think mini India can be seen with all kinds of people, with different languages, different regions, different strata, and so on and so forth. And the characteristic mark of any subliminal legal education institution is evidenced by its ability to undertake research projects in areas of contemporary importance that have a wide-ranging effect on valuable rights of various sections of the society. At Campus Law Center, through various initiatives and collaborations with like-minded organizations and institutions, we try to further this goal and make this institution a leading light in the field of scholarly legal research. Campus Law Center strives to instill in its students the spirit of academic inquiry, critical thinking, crucial research skills that will better enable them to have a transformative impact on the society. Once they exit through the doors of this institution and join the noble profession as judges, advocates, academicians, policymakers, etc. And one example you've seen in Madhav already. So he is representing the entire class of students before you today. You know, we are talking about this affordable shelter today as millions of people around the country, they're deprived of a semblance of a roof above their heads and are left vulnerable to crime, violence, disease as a consequence, accident on the roads. And this is not only having a debilitating effect on their livelihood, but is detrimental to their dignity and well-being. It is not only detrimental to their dignity and well-being, it is detrimental to our dignity and well-being also. Because the moment we see them like this on the road, we can imagine, you know, the kind of human development that is taking place. And this majority of the brunt we see is faced by some of the vulnerable sections of the society, that is our women and children. We all know, we are all law students, that right to shelter is an integral part of the right to life and liberty enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution. International agreements like Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, to which we say India is a proud signatory. The Honorable Supreme Court of India has consistently emphasized on importance of ensuring adequate housing for all in order to achieve the ideals of broad-based and egalitarian social welfare. Various laws have been enacted to protect them. The reality is yet to achieve, and I'm sure Anita and her team and all the students, once they work on this project, we will have definitely some kind of an improvement in the status, at least in Delhi, for which they are working. We all know that Delhi is, you know, an economic powerhouse of rapidly growing modern India, but it lacks in providing adequate shelter to its women and children. On the one hand, we see economic prosperity of unparalleled proportions, but on the other, we see the sad reality of the majority, languishing in treacherous conditions, toiling daily, hoping that their situation will improve to what at best are so-called livable conditions. It's a matter of great concern as the problem is expected to worsen as the rate of urbanization rises with India's economic growth. The increased rate of urbanization, migration of people from rural to urban areas is putting the already inadequate infrastructure of the cities under additional pressure. This has and is resulting in an ever-increasing size of the urban poor. People living and working in urban areas on meager wages, having little to poor access to basic amenities, affordable and adequate housing being one of them. You know, we say roti, kapda or makan. This is something which is the basic that we need. There are schemes like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. We have the constitution provisions, we have the cases coming up, yet we find we have a long way to have housing schemes, housing for especially the vulnerable class. I think our founding fathers and mothers, they did not envisage such a situation to continue even after 7 decades, and that too for such a large section of the society. As Anita has told you and Madhav has also told you, that the project that we are working on is the affordable shelter for women and children. And this is of a seminal importance today. It is launched, they've also told you, it is, but I thought as a professor in charge, I must again repeat that it is launched under the aegis of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, in collaboration with CERA of NLSIU in Bangalore and CLC. The project is aiming to identify the challenges that women and children come across while hoping to find shelter in Delhi. It would not only work on challenges, I'm sure it will also going to provide you certain solutions as to what we should do. I would like to congratulate the team that is behind the entire project. With the able guidance and support from NLSIU under Professor Dr. Sairam Bhatt's leadership, the team from Campus Law Center with Dr. Anita Yadav, comprising of our students, has managed to do tremendous work in the research project. And I think while Madhav was introducing Anita, one could know that that is the kind of faculty that we have. And my congratulations and all my blessings to you, Anita. You're doing a tremendous job. And recently also we found she presented a paper and she was one of the youngest there. And I hope this would continue. Had we all been in the physical mode, I would have given a big applaud to you. But yes, here is the applaud. And I think everyone at home at least should give an applaud to her. We are pleased to have, I can see Mr. Bharat Parashar here. We are pleased to have Mr. Parashar as the chief guest today. It is again a matter of pride for us that he's an alumni of CLC. And he's done his LLM from Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, after having graduated in mathematics from University of Delhi. Mr. Parashar joined Delhi Judicial Service in the year 1992, and he was promoted to the Delhi Higher Judicial Service in 2006. During his 30 years of experience in the judiciary, he has presided over both civil and criminal benches. He's also worked as Joint Registrar Rules at the Honorable High Court of Delhi. In 2014, if I'm not wrong, he was appointed as the Special CBI Judge by Honorable Supreme Court of India, exclusively to try the coal block allocation matters. And he continued in the said post till April 21. Thereafter, he was appointed as the District Judge, Commercial Courts. He's also a trained mediator, and as a master trainer, he has traveled across India, imparting training in mediation to judicial officers and lawyers. I would like to conclude. I don't think I'm not here to give the address in the paper presentation, but teachers are very fond of talking a lot. So, but I would now like to stop and conclude by once again welcoming all attendees to the national seminar. Your contributions and insights are going to be extremely valuable for this project to achieve its desired impact. I wish all participants the very best of luck for today's seminar, as well as the future, and look forward to listening and discussing with them their take on today's theme. All the best. God bless you. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Madhav. And you can continue.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those kind words of wisdom and support. We would not have been able to put together today's seminar without your guidance and mentorship. It is now my heartiest privilege and pleasure in inviting today's chief guest, Mr. Bharat Parashar, who PIC ma'am has so gracefully introduced, to kindly address today's gathering. So,
thank you, Madhav. An apology at the outset for being late in joining. A very good morning to all of you who have joined this virtual national seminar on affordable shelters for women and children in Delhi. At the very outset, I would like to express my profound sense of gratitude to the organizers for giving me this unique opportunity to join this national seminar on a very important issue such as this. It is indeed a pleasure and privilege to be here with other dignitaries I extend my salutations to Shri Hitesh Vaidya, Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, Professor Dr. Sai Ram Bhatt, Professor of Law at NLSIU, Bangalore, Professor Dr. Alka Chawla, Professor in charge, Campus Law Center, Dr. Anita Yadav, Assistant Professor at Campus Law Center, and especially the young breed, Madhav and Eshan Nakra, I can see on the screen. Homelessness has been a problem throughout the world for centuries. The ubiquity and magnitude of the problem of homelessness continues to grow every year. One can say that it is the proverbial elephant in the room which has been left unaddressed for a long time. It is indeed remarkable that so little is known about the lived experience of the homeless, of how urban homeless survive and cope, how they sleep, bath, and eat. Why do they live on the streets and work they do? Their denials and access to public services and food schemes, and how they organize and plan their personal and social lives and their relationships. Life on the streets usually involves surviving in a physically brutalized and challenging environment, with denial of even elementary public services and assured healthy food, and illegalization and even criminalization by a hostile state of all self-help efforts for shelter and livelihoods by urban poor residents. Homelessness constitutes the worst violation of the human right to adequate housing, and homeless people, especially women and children, are among the most marginalized, ignored, and discriminated against in this country. Living on the streets without any form of shelter greatly increases the vulnerability of homeless women and children to abuse, sexual violence, injury, disease, mental illness, and death. At the same time, a large number of women and children are homeless because they have escaped situations of violence at home or have been turned out of their homes for various reasons, including HIV and mental illness. Instances of rape, molestation, and women spending sleepless nights guarding their young adolescent girls are a common feature among homeless women. Accessing healthcare is a tremendous challenge for homeless people, especially women. There are countless incidents of women being denied treatment and turned away from hospitals. Housing and homelessness are policy areas in need of an explicitly gendered as well as child-centric perspective. Gendered housing interventions and policy responses need to be developed so as to tackle the larger social, economic, and political inequalities that relegate the issues affecting women and children to the margins. Realizing that women and children face these serious existential problems, different organs of the state are now trying to formulate policies and oversee their effective implementation so that right to affordable, secure housing does not remain a mirage for destitute women and children. Perennial and round-the-clock special shelter homes and family shelter homes are being set up to cater to the needs of women and children. Under the National Urban Livelihoods Mission scheme of shelters for urban homeless launched in 2014, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation has stipulated specific norms and standards for the distribution, location, and design of permanent and all-weather shelters for the urban homeless who presently have no access to shelter or public services such as health, education, food, water, and sanitation. Provisions have also been made for convergence of service delivery and provision of entitlements, including social security, food, education, and healthcare, as well as identity proof, address proof, pension, below poverty line cards, BPL cards, ration cards, integrated child development services centers, free legal aid, and admission to government schools and public hospitals for urban homeless residents. For the homeless residents of Delhi, the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board has set up scores of shelters, and some of them are exclusively for women and their children. While Delhi has the highest number of shelters for the homeless in the country, these are still not sufficient to accommodate its entire homeless population. Many shelters in Delhi also have low occupancy because of their uninhabitable state, especially the lack of adequate space for sleeping and storing personal possessions, the absence of cleanliness and hygiene, dirty bedding, the presence of mosquitoes, rats, dust, and the lack of safety and security, especially for women. While there is perceptibly a greater political will to improve the lives of Delhi's homeless, their living conditions are still far from being termed adequate and dignified. The lack of hygienic conditions in some shelter promotes the spread of infectious diseases and also acts as a deterrent to the homeless from sleeping in shelters. Many shelters are located in inconvenient locations and preclude families and women from staying in them. While facilities in some women's shelters have improved, toilets, bathrooms, and water are not easily accessible to the homeless. Having to pay to use public toilets, coupled with the lack of access to secure toilets and bathing areas, often means that homeless women must relieve themselves in the open, but less frequently or in the open behind plastic covers and access unclean water through public taps and leaking pipelines. This is most difficult for women, especially those who are out on the streets, rendering them vulnerable to violence and abuse. Delhi State Legal Services Authority took up the cause of the homeless during COVID pandemic and inspected all DUSIP-run shelter homes in Delhi. It filed its report before the Honorable High Court of Delhi, and based on its recommendation observations, the hygiene, sanitation, nutrition, security-related issues were addressed by the concerned authority. It has always been the endeavor of DSLSA to render its assistance effectively and meaningfully so that positive orders of the courts on issues of homelessness and affordable shelters for women and children are addressed. At this juncture, I would also like to mention about temporary residential facilities that are available for female victims of domestic abuse at the Sakhi one-stop centers working in Delhi. These one-stop centers act as safe havens for women victims, and they satisfy the parameters of habitability, accessibility, location, and cultural adequacy. DSLSA also started a special helpline for female victims who have been subjected to domestic abuse, and our legal aid councils have referred women to these one-stop centers. Access to these safe, inexpensive housing facilities allows survivors of domestic violence to escape abusive homes, which can improve their mental health and physical safety. Time and again, we do sensitize our PLVs and legal aid councils about these facilities that are available for women and children so that they can spread awareness about these facilities and so that more beneficiaries are able to come forward to avail these facilities. DSLSA has trained its empaneled legal aid councils to recognize and protect women's equal rights to adequate housing, land, property, and inheritance, and also promote awareness on and ensure adequate implementation of the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. Being the member secretary, Delhi State Legal Services Authority, I sincerely hope to have a meaningful collaboration with the concerned authorities so that the elusive dream of providing affordable shelter to all destitute women and children becomes a living reality. I hope that during this virtual seminar, as all of us brainstorm over ways to secure affordable shelter to women and children in Delhi, the expectations from DSLS in this respect are crystallized so that we may do the needful. With this, I conclude on the parting note. However, on the parting note, I would once again like to commend the efforts made by Campus Law Center, Delhi University, in organizing this program on a topic of such contemporary relevance. It just shows that my alma mater still strives to take up cudgels on behalf of the marginalized, just the way it used to when I was studying there. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. We are extremely humbled to have you in attendance today, for we believe that your stature and knowledge surrounding today's themes are unparalleled, and we are all richer as a result of the same. I would now like to once again call upon Professor Dr. Alka Chawla to introduce our next speaker for today's seminar, the guest of honor, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs. Ma'am.
Thank you, Madhav. So we have our guest of honor today is Mr. Hitesh, Director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs. He has more than 2 decades of experience in broad-based urban development, policy, project formulation, implementation, and urban infrastructure project management, wherein poverty alleviation was an integral component. He has worked for assignments for United Nations, World Bank, US Agency for International Development. Prior to joining National Institute of Urban Affairs, he was the country representative of UN Habitat India. There he was intensely involved in providing capacity assistance to India's urban ecosystem to roll out urban flagship missions in India. Who could be better than him to be our guest of honor today? We are privileged and proud to have Mr. Hitesh, our guest of honor today. Over to Mr. Hitesh.
Good morning, Professor Alka Chawla, Shri Bharat Prashar ji, Dr. Sairam Bhatt ji, Dr. Anita Yadav ji, and all the distinguished participants, young leaders, young professionals on the call. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real not only honor but a privilege to be a part of this academia group, because we as a practitioners, we tend to stay away from the academia. And now talking to academic institutions, talking to young leaders, and I think that is one thing which you have tried to bring here is bringing academic and practice together. As a practitioners, we are always searching for solutions. And as academics, I know they are searching for the they have a solutions, they want to really implement it. I think this is a great initiative. We had been discussing with Dr. Anita Yadav. She has been a real passionate on the project and forced me, even though this is not my subject area, but her passion drove me to be a part of this workshop, and thought I'll address it. While I see so many distinguished learned professors here, I cannot be authority or speak on the point, but one thing which I thought, even though my talking points are different, I thought listening to Dr. Alka ji and Mr. Bharat Prashar ji, I thought let's not talk about the usual talking points, which is what is the problem, but let's see how we can, as a National Institute of Urban Affairs, as a campus law center of Delhi, how do we work together? National Institute of Urban Affairs, as I think all of you I want to know, is a think tank of Government of India. It was established in 1976. And when it was established in 1976, you have to read the political economy at that time. All over the world, poor, slums, these issues were being discussed. And 192 countries thought that's the area which need to be really discussed, deliberated, and dialogue on this, how to address issues of slums, issues of homelessness, issues of poverty. And at that time, 192 countries established UN Habitat. And the same time, India was also in the part of that discourse. India established National Institute of Urban Affairs. And that during that time, it was exciting because UN Habitat was supposed to be in India. But the negotiation took place, UN Habitat established in Nairobi. And the first executive director, Dr. Ramachandran, he became the first executive director from it. So it was an India story to global and global story to India, which really created this National Institute of Urban Affairs. Our basic area which we have been working on, and that's a pronged area. We all talk about we are working on a capacity development, but in the capacity development is a very loose subject. What we are trying to do in the community, we are doing, and what you have already been doing, we are doing contextual research. Don't talk about the Western theories and Western concepts. Let's do our own research and develop our own models. And that's the area we have been really nurturing. I think last 3 years after I have joined, we have really given a push to have a contextual research. We started a program called SAR to really push the contextual research. SAR, the full form is Smart Cities and Academia Towards Action and Research. It is a collaboration between academic institutions like yours and the practitioners like you. And what we have done, we said, bring the students, bring the young leaders, let them start looking at the programs from the perspective of what went wrong, what was envisaged, and come up with the models which can be a future models for the country. So I think that's a very good program. I'll request campus law or University of Delhi to be a part of it, and we can support the students doing their thesis on a government programs, on a government initiatives, and we can have an exchange with not copying, making it a propaganda of government, but looking at it from a young leader's perspective. What is the future of cities they are looking for, and are we going to be towards that direction? Second area where we are looking at is training of practitioners. Again, as you have a solutions, can we have models based on your model? Can we have a solutions based on your models, which practitioners can bring? And we bring the practitioners and the solutions together. So that's where we can strengthen the capacity of practitioners at the ground. We have a network of 100 capacity institutes across the country, and we can work with these institutions together. Third area which we are working on is knowledge management. Everybody comes up with a huge books, and I also take a pride that I come up with 100 publications every year. But who reads them nowadays? In this generation of Twitter, nobody has the capacity to read. The young people don't read. We have to give these capsules in that sense that they understand and take these capsules and start working on it. So the language of our knowledge has to be totally different. We as a policy level, and I admit to say, we talk about 40,000 feet height, whereas the solutions required at 1,000 feet. And that gap has to be bridged together. And I think that's a relationship between academia and a practitioner is the only way where we can have not Ferrari on a Maruti roads, but a Maruti on Maruti roads. That's the solution we have to get it. And lastly, the collaborations and participation. When we see a situation like you have described the problem and situation, we all have. I always feel it's like a situation when Arjuna is in the field of Mahabharata, and he's asking questions to the Krishna. Should I fight or should I not fight? What is my role going to be? And all of us who are practitioners, we are always on that situation, and we don't have an answer. And answers will not come on its own. We don't have a Krishna also. The answers will come like a platform like this, where we discuss, we deliberate, we dialogue, and we come up with a solution. And that's why I congratulate all of you to start this dialogue on homelessness, or to start this dialogue on women and children, and how we can take forward. Because there is no clear answer. Nobody knows where to go. We all talk and we start going towards it. But that direction has to come if you think the central government has all the knowledge, no. If the state government has the knowledge, no. If a city has the knowledge, no. That knowledge has to be nurtured, that knowledge has to be captured, that has to come from the research which you are doing, and now capsulated from practitioners like us to really feed to the actual practitioner on the ground. And that is why I think that relationship becomes much more important to do that. Fourth area, which I am, a lot of things have been said, that's why I don't want to repeat it. But fourth area, which is saying, what is the legal instrument? And we have a Dr. Bharat Prashar here. What is the legal instrument where we can really push? And the legal instrument remains the master plan at a city level. That is the only legal instrument where you can push policies into the thing, the design. And at this moment, I'm working on a master plan of Delhi from my institute. We have invested 4 years in developing a master plan of Delhi 2041. And you, Mr. Prashar, will know, working on a master plan of Delhi in the government sector and submitting in time itself is the biggest challenge. Forget about implementation. And we are talking about 2041. We saw what rains brought yesterday Delhi to a halt. And the whole is we all are trying to show through a master plan a promised land. A promised land 2041, what promised land? And if you have to give a promised land, that promised land has to come with 4 things: better planning, better financial instrumental, better rules and regulations, and better dialogue and discussions. And it cannot be a one-sided, ek baar Gita likh diya master plan mein wo ban gaya. It has to be strategic. Our master planning document has to be a changing document. It cannot be a one-time static document. And young people who are there, who do not see, and that's why I want to, I'm not looking at my points, but I'm talking about, I think you start seeing opportunity in urban local bodies. When you study, you see this is a one area where you can really contribute. Right now, the first thing young leaders pass out, they start looking at abroad. But I think the opportunity to work is in the practice at urban local bodies and starting soiling your hands, because the learning which you get at urban local bodies has to do. But for that, we have to create as a policy level, and I'm saying create that enabling environment where young people can join and see an opportunity there to work with it. So for that, I think the curriculum has to be redesigned. It has to be more practical oriented rather than theoretical. New areas, like when I was a student of planning, learning, air quality was never discussed. Climate change was never a subject. Gender issue was not even, it was marginal people, informal settlement. These were things, but these granularities have to be now start thinking about it. You cannot look at climate change as a word and say climate change means what? For me, climate change means nothing. And a practical person, if you go to a city, I'll tell him, the climate is changing. He'll say, so what? मेरे को तो solid waste management का solution दीजिए यार. मेरे को climate के से बात नहीं करना. You tell me how I can clean my solids, and I have to tell him how what he is doing is actually leading to a larger goal. That relationship between his work and a larger goal has to be done. And I'm very candidly speaking also again, the language which we speak and the language which the practitioners understand, they are two different languages. If we have really copied British concepts and tried to, whether it is smart city, sponge city, reliance city, whatever name we are, these are concepts we are just incorporating. We at our own has to come up with our own concept, own thing, and we have to have that language which is Indian practitioner understand, and he understand मेरा waste कैसे इकट्ठा कर रहा है, मेरा पानी कितने घंटे मेरे को देना है, मेरे को वो ये अपना वाटर बॉडीज को कैसे ठीक करना है, मेरे को अगर घर बनाने हैं तो कैसे बनाने, उसकी टेक्नोलॉजी क्या है, उसका विमेन को करना है तो मैं क्या करूं. तो rather than what to do, we have to change how to do it, and that is what we need to do through this research. Our research should not remain as an academic research, but it should convert into action research, into a practical points which can then give a guidance to a practitioners at the ground level. So having said that, I don't want to dwell on it, but just because some people have talked about women, we also have to realize that women are not a homogeneous group. The way women experience city is different the way a homogeneous group experiences a city. So those issues have to be looked at it. But one area which I'll conclude by saying the biggest, and everybody has talked about Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and I think that was a game changer, because this was first time in the thing, while we were talking about different policies, this really talked about economic vehicle section and lower income beneficiaries. But why it was a game changer? Because earlier also they used to take, but it talked about very clearly women ownership of housing. That was the one area where it differs from earlier schemes. And I think that has to be nurtured. I don't say that it has been again things which have happened, but it has talked about a dream to give up women ownership of housing. There are number of issues, particularly homelessness, which Dr. Prashar has already highlighted. I will not repeat them, but such schemes have started thinking. The thinking at a policy level has to become. There are challenges of unequal representation of women, challenges of undeserved and disadvantaged female households, low income of areas, documentation area. But one clear it is granularity of data. We don't have. When we talk about things, we only talk of big data. We don't talk about actual granularity of data where the decisions can be made, and it gives a comfort to a decision maker. Yeah. And when we talk about planning again, I think all the solution has to be in the embedded in the planning perspective of a city. And this moment of time, we don't have who owns a city. We don't know. Who is the owner of a city? Is it a mayor? Is it a commissioner? Is it the agencies like DDA? Particularly Delhi has a different concept, concept where there are multiple agencies, but everywhere there is a thing. So I think those are the bigger structural issues which we have to grapple. But again, I won't get into those discussions, but because I see a lot of young people, I request them and urge them start seeing opportunity, a career into this urban local bodies as a animal which you have to bring it, because the cities which we have lived, and I'm saying for myself, 2041, I tell my team, I won't be there to see a 2041 plan, how it nurtured. It's you have to really look at it, 2041. And it's the next generation of cities which you are there. You have to give, I know I'm candidly, we are not giving you a good planet. And we're not leaving behind a good planet. It's now your duty. We have failed, but don't you fail and make the city much better, and take it to a level where you will be proud of handing over the baton to your next generation. I am not as proud as I am within this note. I still see a lot of young people, because of the technology, because of their passion, because of their thing, that they see a lot of future in our country or in our cities. So with that note, and I thank you all for bringing me in. Sorry, I did not go through my points, but I just spoke and I could not relate back to my point. So my apologies, but I wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Campus Law School for organizing this and starting taking a discussion which it can really help the practitioners at the ground level. With that, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We believe that everyone in attendance today has gained immensely from the insights that you offered, from the wealth of your experience in this particular sector. I would now like to invite Dr. Anita Yadav to introduce our final speaker for today, Professor Dr. Sairam Bhatt, Professor of Law at the National Law School of India University, Bangalore, and the coordinator at the Center for Environmental Law Education, Research and Advocacy at National Law School of India University, Bangalore. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Madhav, for giving me opportunity to introduce today's our special guest and my mentor also, Professor Dr. Sairam Bhatt sir. Professor Dr. Sairam Bhatt sir is a professor of law at National Law School of India University, Bangalore, and also the coordinator at the Center for Environmental Law Education, Research and Advocacy, CERA, at National Law School of India University, Bangalore. which is one of the leading research center on the policy advocacy in the field of environmental law since its inception. Sir, areas of specialization includes public-private partnership, competition law, contract management law, environmental protection law, right to information, etc. Sir has awarded with the Young India Environmental Law Fellowship. He has also served as adjunct faculty at the Golden Gate University, California, USA in 2003. Sir was also Fulbright Nehru Fellowship in 2010, and he was the visiting researcher at Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C. Sir has authored various books and published many articles, which I'm unable to count right now. Sorry, sir. Sir has also served as a consultant to several governmental and non-governmental organizations and has conducted several training programs and workshops for various officers of the Government of India and other state government under the aegis of various government bodies like Administrative Training Institute, Mysore, National Academy of Direct Access, Delhi, 𝐕𝐲𝐽 Steel, Central Silk Board, National Productivity Council, etc. So with these words, I welcome to my special guest of the program, Professor Dr. 𝐶𝐼𝐴𝐚 Bhatt, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Anita. Alka ma'am, Hitesh sir, and Bharat sir. It's been actually quite enthralling to hear all the three speakers who have spoken on the given topic of this national seminar. I think they're very interesting perspective for all of us to actually take research and contribute to public policy on the affordable housing segment. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Law School has a chair on urban poor and the law, and CERA administers this chair. And this chair was constituted around 6 years back. And we have been doing collaborative work with the Government of India on several topics that affects urban poor. I think when we look at affordable housing as a challenge, there are many challenges that we see that require attention, that require intervention, that require debate, discussion. And to start this process, I think one will have to look at India's international commitment to improving the standard of living of each of its citizens, right from the principles of UDHR to ICCPR, to the 𝐶EDW Convention, to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. I think internationally, I think India owes an obligation to its own citizens to lift the standard of living. There are many international obligations that we owe, and constitutionally, the concept of federal structure that we have between center and state also poses a challenge about who is responsible to grant affordable housing. Friends, if you look at this area, I think the importance all of us understand, and I think we all appreciate the same. But I think there are three dimensions to it. And I'm sure this dimension is already something that we have already captured from the previous speaker's intervention. First and the foremost, I think all of us as legal scholars look at judicial intervention in affordable housing, and the judiciary has done its part. It has declared right to shelter as a fundamental right under Article 19(1)(e) and Article 21. The judiciary declaration is important, not only from a jurisprudential point of view, but also in terms of establishing the right to shelter. But I think when you look at legislative and administrative actions on affordable housing, these are areas that probably we have challenges to take forward too. Friends, while we requested Dr. Anita Yadav to take up Delhi and with the special focus on women and children, we were very clear that these are core research areas that we sitting in Bangalore from CERA cannot probably get the kind of empirical study and evidence that is required. And as collaboration is very, very key to the outcome of any kind of research and public policy intervention. And Anita was very, very encouraging and enthusiastic to take this collaboration forward. And I think I must thank Professor Chawla and Dr. Anita for having taken up this initiative not only in the interest of public policy, but also in the interest of partnership between two premier legal institutions in this particular field. Friends, I believe that when we talk about the word affordable housing, it has many implications. The implications, you could start off by looking at what does this right or what does this obligation owe on the state. For example, we have seen that when we talk about affordable housing, we actually try and merge it with right to property or with land as a property. It's not necessarily linked to right to property or land. It's actually an obligation that has different other dimensions to it. Because housing is not necessarily to be looked at from an ownership perspective. Housing can be in the cooperative model, housing can be in the lease model, housing can be in the rental model. So there are different dimensions and strategies and policies that can be brought into the affordable housing segment. What is critical, friends, for us to understand is that the state sometimes looks at forced eviction in urban areas, because naturally the cities have to look clean, the cities have to look beautiful. We are looking at forced eviction as a challenge in some of these segments. And hence, when you look at the citizens' perspective in this particular area, I think there are different dimensions that needs to be contributed to state policy. Of course, administrative action in terms of schemes are very well there. But remember, friends, when we say affordable housing, we don't expect the government always to provide this kind of an housing. So the government, probably a couple of decades ago, would provide for low-income houses. They would provide for middle-income houses, and we would always look up to the state to provide housing. But today, thanks to the liberalization of the economy, I think the government is only a facilitator. Now, when the government talks about being a facilitator, not being a provider of housing, I think one of the most important rules is the rule of equality and non-discrimination, which means, friends, housing has to be given irrespective of your caste, race, discrimination against any kind of, say, being a migrant as against a refugee, or any other kind of discrimination that actually the state may be tempted to apply when it actually finances or provides the facilities for affordable housing, including with partnership of the private sector. So the principles of non-discrimination are also very, very critical, friends, when we talk about affordable housing. Interestingly, friends, our cities are swelling with the population that is migrating to the cities. And unless the cities are prepared to actually provide decent living conditions, I think basic human rights are definitely going to be affected adversely. And I think it's important that it's not about putting the blame either between the state or the center, but I think the cooperative federalism route is the only method in which affordable housing is going to be a reality. I think it's important that declaration of rights are not only good on paper, but declaration of rights are something that is justiciable for every citizen of this country. Interestingly, friends, I'm sure Anita from her research would tell you that it's not only internally displaced persons that come to the cities, but we have also the challenges of the refugees coming from neighboring countries who are also adding to the challenge of the state providing affordable housing. I think refugees demand equal opportunity in terms of housing and shelter, because our speakers have already told you the kind of vulnerability that these refugees can face if housing is not provided to them. Friends, the term affordability is today a real challenge. I think the difference between the haves and the have-nots have already clearly been displayed in most cities today. Now, what is the benchmark for affordability? Today, with apartments taking over, because inevitably, we have to go vertical in our city housing schemes. So vertical means apartments, and vertical also means a pressure on land and zoning regulations. And hence, if we are looking at aspects of providing houses to, say, people who actually deserve the same, I think the first and the topmost priority for them should be women and children. I think protecting women and children as a vulnerable group of community in the society has to be a top priority of the state. So I think policy on housing needs to be strengthened. I think the administrative action on housing has to be fortified. I think the legislature must come up with adequate support because only legislation can bring in certainty, uniformity, and the financial budget that is required. Because administrative actions can probably be short-term, whereas legislative action can be definitely long-term, and it brings in consistency and it brings in certainty to the way the judiciary probably interprets this right. Is it time that we brought in a constitutional amendment to say that right to shelter is a fundamental right, no longer just a judicial interpretation of the same? I think look at comparative constitution. And what is interesting is, though we don't like the Russian constitution and the Russian country right now because of its war in Ukraine, the Russian constitution was one of the unique constitutions that actually provides right to housing as a fundamental right. So there are comparative constitutional law which actually guarantees you this right. And the Indian constitution is one of the most dynamic, longest written constitution in the world. Adding one such right also will probably matter to the way I think we go about the directive principles of state policy. I think, friends, the purpose of me stating some of these points is only to highlight the kind of debate and the discussion that should be taken in this national seminar. I'm sure most of you have done more than what research I have said. You have written fantastic abstracts, and I'm sure the team from Sira and Anita will take these papers forward. Because finally, friends, it's not about words spoken today, but it is about the research that is published. That should be the benchmark for policy making and future references as we go forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are very keen to publish quality research papers that are presented in this seminar. And hence, we would request you to rework on the ideas that are made in these seminars, take probably 15 or 30 days, probably submit a revised paper to us. And as a collaborative project, I think from Campus Law Center and the National Law School, we would go ahead and publish the papers so that it can not only be submitted to the ministry, but can be a future reference point for researchers in this particular area. So let me thank each one of you for this collaboration, for this partnership, for the attendance today morning. Let me also thank my team in Sira, especially 𝐕𝐫𝐽, who is also from Delhi, who has taken this initiative to forge this partnership forward. And let me tell this that, from a very selfish perspective, we don't want this partnership to end with this one-time work. We want to continue this because Delhi, I think, is a very important case study for us on the urban poor and law. Not only because it's a capital city, but the challenges in Delhi are so multifarious that probably other cities can actually learn from what Delhi has to afford. Especially, like Hitesh ji rightly said, what I would call, he spoke about climate change. I'm largely focusing on disasters and affordable housing, which I think is a very, very critical area for our research with the Ministry of Housing. So thank you everyone for being here, showing your interest, supporting the seminar, and we look forward to longer research and policy intervention from all of you. And this, I think, is truly contributing to national building, as we say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind and insightful words and for your unwavering support, without which today's seminar and this project would not have been possible. We are extremely grateful for the same. Affordable housing is no doubt a primary obligation of the state and the society at large, and it is imperative that we devise different and innovative strategies to achieve this goal. This goal is becoming increasingly important to achieve given the rising rates of urbanization in Indian cities. The rapid rates of urbanizations have put pressure on not only ensuring housing for all, but on ensuring affordable housing for all. Given that the state is now only a facilitator, as Professor Bhatt rightly pointed out, it is important that the private sector is effectively utilized, which is why there is no question that such collaborations between premier legal institutions and policymakers is absolutely essential to steer the discourse on affordable housing in the right direction, so that the Declaration of Rights transforms from being one only on paper to one being realized in reality by the vulnerable sections of the society. Hopefully, today's seminar will provide the correct starting point in improving the direction of this discourse and the current narrative on affordable housing. Now, it is my pleasure to call upon Dr. Anita Yadav to deliver the vote of thanks and bring a close to today's inaugural ceremony. Ma'am.
Thank you, Madhav, for giving me this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks for this inaugural ceremony. So, my dear friend, with this, we have come to the end of this inaugural ceremony, and I will take this opportunity to thank our chief guest of the seminar, Shri Bharat Parasharji, District Judge, Member Secretary, Delhi State Legal Service Authority, for kindly consenting to gracing this occasion with his presence. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, it is a humble privilege to have you among us on this very special occasion on one of the most important of our initiative on the very contemporary issue. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our guest of honor, Shri 𝐜𝐞𝐫𝐲𝐺, Director at National Institute of Urban Affairs, Delhi, for taking out his time out of his busy schedule. Thank you, sir, for your kind generosity. A special thanks to our special guest, Professor Dr. 𝐶𝐼𝐴𝐴𝐴 Bhatt, Professor of Law at National Law School of India, University, Bengaluru, and also a coordinator center for environmental law, education, research, and advocacy, SERA, at National Law School of India, University, Bengaluru, for his tireless efforts and guidance throughout this journey. Dr. Bhatt and his team worked impassively to ensure the smooth organization of this seminar, for which I will be ever so grateful, sir. I extend my deepest gratitude to my beloved professor in charge, Professor Dr. Alka Chawla ma'am, from Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, because without her constant support and guidance, this seminar would have not been a reality. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank all the colleagues who have joined this inaugural ceremony. Last but not least, my all dear participants, thank you so much for joining this inaugural ceremony. So with this, I will end my vote of thanks. Thank you. Over to you, Madhav.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we would like to bring to a close today's inaugural ceremony, and we would request all our participants to join their respective sessions at 12:50 p.m. so that their sessions can commence at their scheduled time of 1 p.m. We hope that you have a memorable experience and that you are able to help inform others and inform yourselves and benefit from everyone's combined experiences, perspectives, and opinions. We wish you all the very best for today. We would also like to request the judges for today's sessions to kindly join the judges briefing that is scheduled to start at 12:30 p.m. today. The link for the same has been shared with you on your respective emails. With that, we would just like to once again wish the participants the very best for the paper presentation that is scheduled to follow today's inaugural, and hope that you have a fantastic experience. Thank you once again to everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much.